Hey Trojan fans, welcome back to the Trojan Football Coach's Couch. I'm your host Jody Kinney. As always, I'm joined by football head coach David Bishop. The Trojans had a much needed bye week after a 5-0 run through the month of October. So Coach, obviously a bye week is going to have a different flow to it than a game week. What's the approach you take with a bye week?
Well, that first week, I don't like to use the word pullback, but we probably don't hit near as much as we normally do. Usually when you start getting into week 7 and 8, you've got some bumps and bruises, and we've got a couple kids with some shoulders that are bothering them. So, you know, that first week we pull back, and really we don't do a whole lot of team. We do mostly individual drills and group drills, just try to hone the things that maybe we've been lacking. And then, you know, we may have some preparation. Obviously, we'll have some preparation going into the following week, ready for our opponent. And then this week, Monday's not a typical Monday, so really we move the calendar. So Monday's really a Tuesday. Tuesday is a Wednesday. Wednesday is an extra day for us, and Thursday is a typical Thursday.
Okay. I think, I mean, you talk about pulling back a little bit, so obviously there's some difference in practice intensity, but is there some balance you try to strike between turning it down and turning it too far down that you can't really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's the one thing that has always been difficult for us is if you turn it down too much, you're frustrated with the kids because they don't know that middle ground. So when I say turn it down a little bit, we just don't have as many collision drills, but everything else is full speed. And we spend a lot of time, believe it or not, doing some conditioning as well.
Good, okay. All right, we caught a little bit of a scheduling break this year and will next, since it'll be the same schedule. This bye week comes before our final 2 games of the season, between Cherokee Bluff and Dawson County. And then on the night of the bye, they happen to be playing each other. I know most of the staff was in Dawsonville Friday to watch that game. It's got to be an unusual luxury to be able to scout your next 2 opponents playing each other in person at the same time.
Yeah, majority of the staff ended up going. A lot of our kids went there, and just to, you get everything on video, but it just doesn't do justice, in my opinion, as seeing it in person. You get to see the true speed of the game. You get to see the collisions. You get to see things that you typically don't get to see on video. So it is pretty neat to be able to do that. I don't know that I've ever experienced that before.
Right. Now, I know Cherokee Bluff's been a little bit of an enigma as far as how to evaluate them this year. I mean, obviously they've improved immensely from their inaugural season 2 years ago, and even from last year, since a lot of the starters from 2018 are still playing.
That's right.
They'd won all 7 of their games by at least 15 points, and they'd only allowed 33 points in the first 7 games. But you also have to balance that with the fact that the first seven opponents included 4 winless teams, plus a 5th team whose only 2 wins came against 2 of those 4 winless teams. The only team they had with a winning record was a single-A public school, and all 5 of those wins were against other single-A public schools. So I did some math. If you take out the games where their opponents played each other and someone had to win anyway, their opponents' combined record was only 7-38, with 5 of those wins coming against single-A public schools. Now I'm not trying to diminish the Bears' 7-0 start, but those opponents really didn't provide much of a yardstick to really evaluate those stats from, did they?
No. Going into the Dawson game, I felt like they were definitely a big question mark. Not necessarily that they weren't going to be a good team, but they hadn't been tested. And the one thing I always say is, even if you've not been tested, you need to handle your business.
Right.
And at least when you look at that part of it, they handle their business in those situations. And then obviously, playing Dawsonville, that was their first big test, and interesting game that could have really gone either way. I know Dawsonville squandered some opportunities, but regardless of how you look at it, they competed well, and then they also showed the ability to win when they had to battle back and forth a few times. So they showed that.
And so that, like you said, that seemed to answer a lot of questions. With them being Dawson County in Dawsonville, that thrilling 28-27 victory on the road. I think they blocked a field goal right at the end of the game that would have put Dawson County ahead. Now the Bears are led by head coach Tommy Jones, who is obviously a very familiar opponent around here. I counted up this would be his 9th game coaching against the Trojans. You've gone head-to-head and won twice since he given at Cherokee Bluff and won both times. Coach Christmas won 5 out of 6 when he was at Lumpkin County, and just for good measure, he even coached against North Hall principal Billy Wells when Mr. Wells was near, and Coach Jones was at Decula. So this is somebody you know pretty well from a football standpoint.
And I know Coach well, not only from a football standpoint, but also a personal standpoint. He and I had the opportunity to go to missions together in Brazil. We were roommates together, so just getting to know him on a personal level has been neat. And regardless of how things turn out Friday night, I know the respect that we have for each other is tremendous. He's a super person, individual, as well as a very good football coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's had success, but at Lumpkin County, probably had the most success they've had there. He really, brought Decula back after a few down years in his 5 years there, and now he's really done a great. He's done a great job, building the Cherokee Bluff program up from scratch. But he just hasn't been very successful against us. So let's keep it.
We'll try to keep it that way.
We're going to try to keep it that way. Now the stakes of this game Friday are very simple from a Cherokee Bluff standpoint. If they win, they're region champs, and I'm there 27 months after the school opened, first region championship. I think they might be a little fired up for this one, get their coach.
Absolutely. I mean, how could you not be? Whether it be the staff, the community, the players, everybody should be looking forward to Friday night.
Right. Now, if we win, the Trojans would likely clinch at least a second place finish in the region and a first round playoff game at home. I think I figured out one weird, highly unlikely scenario that could still end up in a three-way tie that gets past the 12-point boundary. I think you'd have to beat Cherokee Bluff by 1 and lose to Dawson County by 1 exactly. In both games, that's the only way it could get past that tiebreaker. But I guess the most important thing is with a win Friday night, it gives us an opportunity for maybe the most improbable region championship in program history if we get against Dawson County. So I think we should be a little fired up too, wouldn't we, Coach?
Yes, and to be honest with you, we spoke to the kids about it yesterday. The biggest thing was look, we need to be humble and grateful for where we're at. The fact that we're even playing football right now, where there's a lot of schools in Georgia that didn't get to play, and then just humble the fact that hey man, we're in a position that probably a lot of people didn't expect us to be in, let alone the players, community, and let's be honest, as coaches, that was a goal, but early on it wasn't looking too good. So
right. So I mean, you touched on as after the way the season started, and now already having a playoff berth locked up, and I think no worse than third locked up. I would think there would be somewhat a sense with both the coaches and the players that kind of playing with house money here now, aren't you?
Absolutely, and that's kind of the way we approach it, and we trying to focus 100% on us and getting us better, and then I think that's part of what's helped us get to be where we're at as well.
Okay, well, no need to beat this too much in the ground. And like I said, the stakes are kind of obvious for both teams. So it's going to be North Hall, Cherokee Bluff, Region 7 AAA Championship on the line. It's Friday, November 13th at 7:30 p.m. It will not be streamed on North Hall YouTube, so you need to check local listings for streaming and radio options. Coach, I know we don't have highlights from the bye week, so we're not going to take a trip to the North Hall Tire and Wheel film room this week, but as always, thanks to North Hall Tire and Wheel for your support of the North Hall program. But last week we started pulling back the curtain a little bit on the program and starting talking about the history and the culture of the program, at least since you arrived in 2001, and frankly most of us don't want to talk about anything before that. So we, just to recap, we started by talking about the state of the program when you arrived, and worked our way through, all the way up through what I guess would be seen as the pivot point in the history of the program, with that being breaking that 26-game losing streak with that 35-12 win here over Madison County. Just some numbers for you and people at home. Up to that point, in almost 45 years of football, North Hall's record was 117, 319, and 5. A 271 winning percentage. That's slightly better than average batting average, but it's not really a winning percentage there. Since then, starting with that game, 145 and 72. That's a 688 winning percentage. So win about 2.5 times more often.
Right.
More frequently. So now, rather than continue chronologically, I'd like to, as we go forward, talk about some of the elements of the North Hall culture that's contributed to the consistent success we've seen for the better part of a generation now. And to me and many others I've talked to inside and out, I guess one of the biggest elements of that has been the community involvement in the program. There's few programs that can match the level of community involvement that we have here.
No, absolutely.
So, and with most programs, the community involvement really revolves around the Touchdown Club at its core, which in turn revolves around the officers and committee chairs in the club. We've been amazingly blessed with some fantastic workers and leaders in that club over the years, haven't we, Coach?
Oh, there's no doubt, and a lot of them, once their sons have graduated, still continue to be involved, which is kind of a neat thing.
Right, and it's it just seems like, you know, many times we're like, oh, geez, so and so's son is graduating. You know, he's been doing this and doing this. But it always seems like they just hand the baton off to someone else, and the machine just keeps rolling, doesn't it?
That's true, and you know, it's been a blessing to be able to get to know a lot of the individuals, you know, over 20 years, and like I said, some of them have come back and taken up leadership roles. Some have been presidents, been away and back, and I think some of that is going to continue because a lot of them have reached out and said, hey, now that my other children are gone, I need something to do, you know. So I think you're going to see a lot of old faces now kind of be coming back to part of the program as well.
You know, now that community involvement, when you and Coach Jones arrived here, you know, almost 20 years ago, was that something you had saw immediately as a potential strength in the community that you could leverage, or was it something you felt you had to develop from the ground up, or just give it a direction, or what was the mood of it?
Well, I think it had to be brought along. There's no doubt about it. I remember Coach Christmas talking about the first time that they had a Touchdown Club meeting, and a lot of the questions that were raised, and he kept saying, well, you know, let's look at A, B, and C, and they'd look at him and think he was crazy, and then, okay, well, in order for us to get to where we want to be, we have to have A, B, and C. And they kept looking at him, but we've never done it that way, and he's like, exactly, so let's change. So I think as people saw a vision, that's when things started to click, because I think things had always been done possibly the same way over and over again, and when that was like, look, that hadn't worked.
Right.
Let's look at something new. And really his energy and his desire, like I said, we call him Bob the Builder, was something that people attached to pretty quickly, because he didn't see things for what they are. He sees things for what they could be. For instance, you know, we left Bainbridge and they had just built a new facility and a new stadium, and I remember driving in through the middle school. We drove in the back way. They were just building the baseball hitting facility. And I remember looking at the stadium, and my first words out of my mouth was, are you serious? This is where you want us to go? And he said, you can't look at it what it looks like right now. Let's try to see what we can make it. And so I think his vision and his mindset is what helped the community really buy in.
Okay, so the willingness was there, just lack
direction. Yeah.
So, you know, all gas, no steering wheel. So now you mentioned last week kind of one of the foundational truths you're trying to establish with the team and the program is that every detail is important, and that the little things add up to big things. And in my years of being around the program, I've seen that as being just as key to the workings of the boosters as it has been to the players. In fact, I've heard it said many times around here, there are no unimportant details.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, whether it's coming in here and taking care of kids pregame, to, you know, all the big details of putting together a project of what we may be doing building, and just looking at the facility. I mean, just little things like looking at facilities. You know, a lot of people can just glance over it and just walk by and not think twice about it because they see it every day. So, you know, the details mean so much when you're talking about little things, whether, like I said, touchdown club. You know, every committee, we've got all these committees. You have to have somebody in chair and you give them some direction and they kind of run with it. It's their little piece of the pie. Right. And yes, we try to do a lot of the things the same way, but we also give them some leeway. Hey, let's give us some ideas and maybe we can improve some things.
Yep, and with most of the boosters being parents, do you see the evidence that attention to detail being modeled by the boosters influences the players? They pick up on that and say, okay, the boosters are taking care of, they're very focused on detail. Maybe that's the key for success for us too. Does that transfer?
I think a little bit, but part of me also wonders, you know, there's times where you recognize teenagers are teenagers.
Oh, yes.
And the one thing that I have noticed throughout the years are when kids go away somewhere and they see how other things are run, then all of a sudden it really opens up their eyes to how lucky they were and how blessed they were to be here. That's the biggest thing that I see more than anything when it comes to, you know, the details, and then kids all of a sudden going, wow, I had no idea that we were that much better than everybody else in how we do things.
Now, having a mantra of there being no unimportant details, you know, I can see how that could easily push a coach to a breaking point and to burning out. So, how important has it been to you and the coaching staff over the years to be able to really turn significant portions over the program operations to the community and not have to manage every detail on a daily basis?
I can tell you from experience, my first year I tried to run a lot, and it was a bad idea. But it is nice to know that when you have people in place, the system that we've created, that, you know, we try to have officers in for at least 2 years. That first year is kind of a training year, so that way they understand how things work, and that second year now becomes that, hey, I'm the driving force while training somebody else, and you just know that there are a few things that you have to deal with. And, you know, the off season is where people don't realize it, is where the majority of the work is done.
Right.
When we get in the season, I rarely have to do anything, I really have to talk to anybody, and it's just, I can focus on football.
Right, and that's because, you know, many of, especially the in-season functions that are handled by the boosters, these have really become self-winding over the years, haven't they? And I mean, let's talk about a few of them. Start with the chain game, for example.
Oh yeah, I mean, Steve Parks and his crew, I don't ever have to worry about them. As a matter of fact, sometimes all of a sudden I realize I hadn't even reached out to them, and I'm like, hey Steve, you know we got a game Friday night, that's when we start. He goes, I got it, coach.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking when I was preparing for this last night, we need to get them shirts, you know, say, you know, Death Taxes North Hall chain game.
Yeah.
Because they pretty much elevated themselves on that level. Another in-season thing, something that's become actually pretty unique to North Hall in my experience, you know, the Booster Club stat crew.
Oh yeah, and for years, when you go back to Richard Oates, created such a great crew. I think he even created the first program that we used for it, and I don't know if we still use it, but I know for him it was.
It's been tweaked, but it is still his spreadsheet.
And I mean, you're talking about something that's you know, almost 20 years old, and it may have been there before we had gotten here because he was part of that program. But you know, that's just another piece of thing that I don't think twice about. But as soon as the game's over, you can look in your email, or in the old days, you'd walk out there, here's a piece of paper, hand it to you on Friday night right after the game, here's your stats.
Yeah, but it pretty much gives them a new computer every 10 years and turn, that's about how long they last. And the other thing, having been involved with that myself a bit over the years, it's even evolved as a service to the local media.
Yes.
I know I know here in the press box, the local media is extremely appreciative of the support that the stat crew gives them. I remember there's been years where other programs around the county have complained about us getting, preferential treatment in the media. I was like, well, we give the media preferential treatment. It kind of goes in hand in hand.
Wash each other's hands, you're good.
Yeah. Another function, got to mention the now defunct late great paint crew, which was something amazing.
Yeah, I mean that of all the things that have, I hate to use the word hurt, that was something that hurt just for the fact that it was a great opportunity for dads and even we had a mom on that crew to get together every week or every other week and spend hours out here detailing our field. And it was without a doubt the best looking field in the area week in and week out because we allowed them to have a little bit of personal touch to it. And they became really tight. And then we've tried to find ways over the years since we've got the new turf is, how do you find a way to bring a group of people back together again? And that's been something that's been tough.
Right. Two more aspects, in-season aspects that are currently on COVID hiatus, but I'm sure they will reemerge as soon as they're allowed. Again, things that are somewhat, homegrown, unique to North Hall. The pregame tailgate and the postgame meal.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned those. Coach Christmas and I talk quite often. As a matter of fact, we talked yesterday. He'd like to come watch a game, a Dawson County game. He said, do you know what the pregame tailgate is? And I was like, Coach, we haven't been able to have one all year because of COVID. And I said, we don't have the postgame either. And he's like, wow. And I said, the strangest thing about it was the night before, I was thinking about parents that typically you get an opportunity to interact with, because those are your chances, not so much the pregame but the postgame, to really interact with your parents.
Right.
And there is none of that this year because you don't have it on the field after the game.
Right.
And you don't have the postgame that we have up here in the field house. I mean, there are parents that have now, just for instance, the Jacksons. I mean, you had Sam, you got Danny, and then you have Will. So they all been in this program for nearly 12 years, and I haven't seen Joe Jackson all year.
Right.
Which is just awkward because it's who we are, and this has been something that's been strange. So.
Okay, guys.
Well, I mean, there's so many other areas that are common to every program, everything from program sales, the postseason banquet, fundraising, season ticket sales, TD club memberships, the youth program, et cetera. I guess, but what's uncommon here is just the quality of those programs and how much of them is handled by the boosters and not really by the coaching staff and administration.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, it is a blessing to know that we spend a little bit of time talking about them in the off season. But once that's gone, they run with it. And they might call me or email me with some questions. They might say, hey, I need this information from you. But all in all, it's smooth sailing, which is really nice.
Right. Now, the people outside they're often questioning, especially people from around here that know the turnaround that happened, 20 years ago and the sustained success we've had since. They're always asking what's been the quote secret sauce to success, and a lot of them have pointed to community involvement, but I know our standard response has been that there's no one secret. It's getting all the details right. But I guess if you look at the program, use the brickyard as a metaphor for the entire program, would it be fair to say that community involvement's the mortar that holds all those bricks together?
Oh, absolutely. I think without support, you're never going to have a great program, and there's no doubt that here we do have great support. One of the things that we did, which I thought was neat, we always had a parent work day, and it was never quote unquote mandatory,
right.
And it was a struggle for a while, not because people didn't want to be. It was hard, you got to get up on a Saturday, And a parent asked me, I think it was year one, said, how about we make it a parent, player, coach work day and say everybody needs to be here? And I was like, okay, we'll give it a shot. And since that time, it has been a fun day. Parents love being here. I remember that first year, I think you were involved in it. And
Yeah, the aftermath wasn't fun for me,
yeah,
unfortunately.
no, you're right. That's right. You were a little swollen with the poison oak.
Yeah, I did find the poison ivy under the juniper,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
was unpleasant.
But
it
I mean,
was-
if
it
you
was
look
good.
at the amount of work that was done in that first year, just to clean up the facility and get it ready for game was impressive. So those are the things that, we talk about: community involvement, parent involvement. Those are the days that I actually look forward to.
Yeah, and like I said, I remember that day we had, it was a small army out here.
Over 100 people.
Over 100 people, and not just working out in cleaning out the bushes, cleaning the entire stadium. I know the locker room and showers got a deep cleaning.
Yeah.
and repainted, I think, all in one day.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot got done in about 5 or 6 hours there. So, well, next week, Coach, I'd like to talk about another foundational aspect of the football culture here at North Hall, and that's going to be the youth program and what that's meant. But until then, of course, good luck against the Bears, and as always, thanks for spending time here on the couch.
Absolutely.
And so that wraps up this episode of the Trojan Football Coaches Couch. We'll be back next week to recap the Cherokee Bluff game. I'm sure we'll have to lay out all the possible permutations that have arisen for playoff seeding. And we'll also preview the regular season finale against Dawson County. As always, if you have questions you'd like me to post to Coach Bishop, post them in the comments, and we'll see about including them in the show. So thanks for tuning in, and go Trojans.
Go Trojans. Yeah, last few weeks I've had to cut a little bit out because we said go Trojans, then we all just move around real fast. It was like, we got to pause. Yep.
Excellent.